And I think that you are not only going to find this one of the most relaxing presentations that you've ever seen and one of the most convincing, but I think that you are going to have some personal and financial breakthroughs from what you're about to learn. So let me show you some real money. I've got right here on my desk some silver bullion coins. Now this is actually about $10,000 of silver. Each one of these coins is 1 ounce of 0.999% pure silver, minted by the U.S. Treasury, and it can actually be used as legal currency. They're minted as $1, but the silver in the coins alone is worth right now about 38. And there's actually a real good chance that we might have hyperinflation here in the States, and if that happens, of course, these coins that you see right here are actually going to go from about $38 to about 900. So let me show you some other nifty things, and then I'm going to attach this camera back again. But let me kind of wade through this here, because I didn't always understand this, and I wouldn't have known had somebody showed me this when I lived in a van about 1.5 years ago. I literally would not have known that this was worth $45. I would have turned it, I would have looked on the back, I would have said that it saw $1, and I would have thought they were trying to give me $1. So if my boss owed me 20 bucks and he said, I'm going to do you a favor and give you 40 by giving me a 1 ounce silver coin, I wouldn't have known, and I would have taken the 20 instead, thinking he was trying to rip me off. Isn't that fascinating? Most people just don't understand how money works. They don't understand how it's created. They don't understand how the government creates it out of thin air. And more importantly, they don't understand how not only is it being taken away from the middle class and the poor and passed into the hands of the rich, but if they don't act, they're not only going to be in poverty, but there's a very good chance that they will not survive. Talking about the art of money making, there's this really great book that I discovered in my quest to learn the ultimate way to get money. I discovered this book called The 4-Hour Workweek. Now, I first ran into this book, I was kind of mad at it, and the reason why is because I was working 40 hours a week, and I lived in a van, and I opened this book. It's by this guy named Timothy Ferriss. He actually started a nutrition company online, and he got, if you look on the back of this book, I want to show you something here. It says how Tim, I don't know if you can read this, went from making $40,000 per year and 80 hours per week of work to $40,000 per month working less than 4 hours per week. How to outsource your life to overseas virtual assistants for $5 an hour and do whatever the heck you want. So I picked this up, and first of all, I wasn't making $40,000 a year, and I was working about 80 hours a week. I was poor. But second of all, he was making $40,000 per month in 4 hours a week, and I said, this guy knows something that I don't know. I started to really ask myself, why don't I have money, and why can't I get more money into my life? And the more I researched, the deeper the rabbit hole went, and the more that I realized as I moved deeper into the rabbit hole that I did not understand money growing up at all. And if I didn't change my beliefs very, very, very quickly, not only would I continue to not understand money at all in my life, but I would be poor as my destiny for the rest of my life. And so let's walk in the house now. Hold on a second. Got to turn this camera around. And I am actually going to show you different ways of getting money. I'm going to show you how money is created from thin air. I'm going to show you how, this is important, to get more money in your life, and the only place that it comes from. That's right, money only comes from one place, and that's the funky thing that most people don't in fact understand. So let's take you into my little home office here. This is a little bit messy because my maids haven't been over since this morning. Yes, I have 2 maids. I don't clean my house at all. I got to move this tripod a little bit to get it to where it will look at the chalkboard. And one of the things that I discovered in that book, The 4-Hour Workweek, I used to want to control everything. I would have never hired maids several years ago. This was a little description that I made for a guy who came over here. I was teaching him how to market his photography business on the internet. This is kind of what I do for a living. I am very good at making money online and very good at teaching it to other people. In fact, I'm not only the #1 recruiter in one of the largest home businesses on the planet, but I am also the #1 producer inside the largest online attraction marketing community, and I started doing it, get this, when I was living in a 1996 Dodge Caravan on the North Shore of Oahu, Hawaii, with absolutely no money to start. So sometimes people say, Dave, I got you. I want to make money. I'm so excited about the concept of having more money and more prosperity in my life. However, because of my financial lack and because of the fact that I don't have anything to start, I don't possibly see how I could ever get more money into my life. So let me show you, in fact, how the different ways of making money manifest and how you can end the frustration forever. And let me actually show you why I chose certain directions and what that's led to today. Now, I'm not the richest person in the world because I don't think that I want to be, because I don't want the responsibility, and I also don't want to bother trying. However, I have made over $5,000 a week minimum for the last year, almost and a half, and my life is the coolest life of anybody that I know. Now, just as a warning, this camera may run out of battery, so I might need to stop this presentation, and I think you'll be amazed that I can talk for this long with almost no breath, but I might have to stop this presentation and restart it, so if that happens, well, you'll know why. As this presentation is going through, I'm actually going to be showing you proof, pictures of checks that I've earned, different companies that have paid me lots of money into my bank account. I'm going to show you links, and I'm going to show you statistics as I'm kind of talking here. You're going to kind of see these kind of draw onto the screen. Beaches that I visited. You already saw the beautiful view in front of my house. I actually got interviewed today by Home Business Connection. I'm going to be the cover story of Home Business Connection on the next issue that's mailed out. The lady was blown away because I started to describe to her what I'm about to describe for you. Now, I don't have this book, but you're going to see an image of it, hopefully, if I remember, flash on the screen. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. Now, when I read this book, previous to reading it, I had no idea where money came from at all. And when I read this, it was appalled. Now, this isn't quite how to get money yet. This is just where it comes from. So let's talk about this. Where does money come from? When I grew up, I had no idea to even ask the question where money comes from. I assumed that a dollar bill was worth 20 bucks. Well, let me try to find a dollar bill to show you how much it's actually worth if I can find it. Let me show you actually how much I think that this money is worth. I actually don't have any dollar bills probably on me. Oh, I actually do. Hold on just one second. I have a $10 bill. I want to show you how much this $10 bill is really worth. So let's step back into my office here really quick, and I want to paint out an illustration. Let me make sure this is lined up properly and looking at the whiteboard. I want to show you actually how much this $10 bill is worth. You see this on the screen? You got a picture here. I don't even know which president. Hamilton. Okay, we've got Hamilton. $10. When I was in the 80s. Okay, I was born in 1981, May 17th, 1981. $10 an hour was a lot of money. You know how much $10 an hour is today? It's about this much. Why, folks? Because I assumed my entire stinking life I was lied to, not by my parents because they didn't understand, but by the government, by education, by the banking system. I assumed that this worthless toilet paper that I'm crunching up on the screen is actually real money, and you know what it is? It's trash, it's paper, and it's not worth anything more than a stack of paper that I've got over here. You see this? This is worth actually about $1 million, because if you look at this giant stack of paper, this is about how much paper it would take to print off $1 million in $100 bills. And so let's talk about where this money actually comes from, and then let's get into the simple science of having all the money in your life that you could possibly want to have. So where does money come from? Where did that $10 bill that I just ripped up because it's toilet paper to me, where did this $10 bill that I had in my life until I tore it up come from? Well, let me explain to you how it got from where it was created to me. This is what happens. We've got the big government, and you know what the government loves to do? They love to spend money on stuff. In fact, I don't think that it's possible, regardless of whether somebody is a Republican or a Democrat or another party that gets invented out of thin air, to be elected to president without wanting to spend more money on something to prove that their schlong is bigger than the president that served before he did. So I don't know if this is actually true. I've only been alive since 1981 and seen the deficit go from about $6 trillion now to $14 trillion where we sit today, and increasing by trillions and trillions every single year. But government is really good at a couple of things. Number one thing they're really good at is stealing from the people. That's the first thing that they're really good at. And the next thing they're really good at is being really inefficient. So we look at this. I can't even spell inefficient because I failed through school, and I managed to pass just because of the fact that I was really, really, really good at copying. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't. The government's good at stealing, they're good at being inefficient, and they're good at throwing people in jail if people don't let them steal from you. So this is pretty much all the government's good at. And they're really good at overspending, spending. In fact, they're so good at it that every single year for the last 100 years, we have spent more money every single year than we spent the previous year. Now, when I first looked at this, I said the government must be bad at managing money. But it's not, in fact, the case. When I actually looked into the mechanics and the science of why they're spending more money every single year, I dawned upon a realization that was so appalling, I literally sat up and I screamed. I'm not kidding. I about flipped out because I had been poor a majority of my life. I failed every job I ever had. I failed my way through high school, and I could never figure out why life was such a struggle for me. And I mean, heck, I'm kind of smart, darn it. I mean, look how fast I'm talking about stuff. Heck, I must be smart, right? I read tons of books. I was intelligent. I could do math really quick. I was really good in conversation. I was really good at explaining things and teaching things, but for some reason, the traditional system always made me struggle and always made me frustrated. Why? Well, this is the answer why. Let me show you actually how this whole process starts. So I said, well, the government's stealing and they're inefficient, and that's what I assumed at first. But let me tell you actually what I discovered. You see, it used to be written in the U.S. Constitution. I'm using the United States as an example because, when I was born in the States, it was a great country. Everybody was patriotic. Everybody would have died for their country, except the Jehovah's Witnesses. Those guys definitely would rather knock on the door, but they're great people too. We had a great country of a lot of patriotic people, did we not? Well, I think that we have a wonderful country. We had lots of people, $10 an hour then was even a lot of money. It wasn't as much as it was in like 1912, but it was still a fairly amount of money. The money supply was managed okay, but we were just starting to run into some problems. But I didn't understand how any of this stuff happened, but here's what I discovered actually happened. We used to have a congressional enforced money supply backed in gold and silver. Remember how I showed you that big thing of silver that's sitting outside my house that's worth about $8,000 in silver today? It's actually probably worth about $10,000 with the recent increase in silver price. I actually bought it for about $5,000, that big tub that you see out there. It's about doubled in the last 6 months or so. But Congress used to have a gold and silver backed money supply that was controlled by the federal government. 3 times in the United States history, central banks came up and they tried to take control of the money supply. Now, a central bank is a bank like the FED, the Federal Reserve, and it is not controlled by the government. It's controlled by private people, and nobody knows who they are. That's the way central banks has always operated, and in fact, banks like the central banks and monetary systems like we have today have actually caused the physical collapse of over 600 civilizations through history. Isn't that fascinating? Well, the Federal Reserve said, you know what, we're having banking problems in the world. There's a problem with gold and silver. We can't infinitely expand the economy because gold and silver is keeping it in fixed margins. We need a centralized controls bank so we don't have bank run, so we can insure people's money in the bank so people feel safe and secure. And for safety and security, we got bamboozled and tricked into believing that a centrally controlled private bank was better at managing our money supply than God-given gold and silver. And let me tell you exactly what's happened since then. If you look at a chart of inflation from the time the United States was formed, which I believe is 1776, all the way up until the time the Federal Reserve was formed, which I believe was 1929, although I could be a little bit off on those dates. You can look them up on the internet. The inflation chart goes like this. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Fairly flat line. We get to 1929, and here's what happens. The Federal Reserve enters in, and they start to control the money supply, meaning that a private organization that's ran by people that no one knows who they are start to control money, lending, and spending, and they start to do it on their own terms. In other words, a few people that we don't understand are controlling all the spending in the entire world and are designing a system that we have to play by, and we no longer have a choice in the matter. Let me explain to you, though, what happened to inflation. If you haven't followed that inflation chart, and if you don't believe me, just look up any inflation chart on Google. Right around 1929, and you can correlate this date with the time that we passed control of the money supply from the Congress backed in gold and silver to the Federal Reserve that had a fractional reserve lending. Inflation basically goes like this, to where today a dollar is worth about, 2 cents or less, maybe 1 cent was worth before 1929. And so you say, well, how did this process happen? Well, we went from having our money backed in tangible assets to having something really fascinating happen in the economy. And let me explain to you exactly what it is that happened. We started doing something called fractional reserve lending. Now, if you really want to know what fractional reserve lending is, I want you to read that book. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it's really going to open your eyes to how all this stuff works. Let me turn the light on here really quick, see if I can get a little bit more definition in my face. Fractional reserve lending essentially means this. It means a bank can create money out of thin air. Now, I'm not going to explain to you the entire process of how it works. I'm going to explain to you exactly what you need to do to get more money into your life. Does that sound fair? So let me explain to you first what money is and how it's created by the Federal Reserve today. All right, now we know that money is just paper, and we know that it's only valuable because we think it's valuable. There is no tangible asset backing it other than you and I, birth certificates and our ability to pay taxes. That's the only thing that backs it. But let me explain to you the appalling truth and bring that into the real truth of how to create prosperity. Let's cut through all the bull crap and the fluff, and let me show you the ultimate way to get money, period. You ready for this? All right, so how's money created? Well, the United States, they want more money, so guess what they do? They issue something called a bond that they then borrow money from the Federal Reserve to fund that bond. They then promise to pay a percent of interest to the bondholders on that bond, and also simultaneously they're lent money from the Federal Reserve to get that bond, and guess who they have to pay? They have to pay the Federal Reserve an interest rate. Here's what that money comes from. You ready? The money comes from the United States lending, meaning money is created out of thin air, not from any tangible assets, but from debt. Now, if I misexplain this process even a little bit, I do apologize. I'm not a university professor. I'm a guy who flunked 8th grade. However, I understand fractional reserve lending better than most people do. So let me explain to you how this works. So money is literally created out of debt. Now, let me ask you a question here real quick. Does that make sense? Not really, right? So you say, wait. So where's the money come from? Private bank prints it, gives it to the government, who then issues a bond. Government has to pay interest to this guy. Government has to pay interest to this guy. Now, what's the problem with creating interest on money that was created from debt? Here's the problem. You're creating money by adding ones and zeros to a little computer that then prints off the money. And in fact, today, not all of it's printed. It's just circulating in ones and zeros in computers. Well, here's the problem that this creates. Let me explain to you exactly what happens and why it's so appalling. Because this money, number one, is all the money that there is, and if the debt was paid off, there would be no money. That's right. If we paid off all the debt that we have, that $14 trillion that we owe, which is about $47,000 per man, woman, and child that exists in the United States, that's how much we all owe, all these people all over the world we're borrowing money from, there would be no money with our current system. So in other words, our current system of having money can't exist without debt. Isn't that appalling? It's absolutely unbelievable that only 1 in about 100,000 people know that, but it's clearly written if you read any of the documents on fractional reserve lending by the Federal Reserve. They create it out of thin air, then they charge interest on it. Now here's the crazy thing, because they're charging, why do people give other people money? Because they want something from them, and that's the only reason. Right? So let's say somebody has a shovel, and let's draw a little shovel out here today, and let's say you've got money. Well, you want the shovel, this guy has a shovel, you've got money, this guy wants money, you give him the money, he gives you the shovel. Isn't that pretty simple? Well, here's the thing, folks, there are all sorts of things that people want that you've got. And if you don't got them, you can connect with them, and here's what I discovered. I discovered if you can set up a system to sell the shovels to all the people who want shovels, you can do something that's almost so good. I mean, it would have been the dream of fairies thousands of years ago. You can actually get people from all over the world in all sorts of different systems and all sorts of different economies from all over the place who are doing all sorts of things to get that money to give you money in exchange for something that you're not even actively involved in the process of selling. And how do you do that? You do that through a business system. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people, they say, I need money, so let's go sell something. And they go start hitting up doors, and they start knocking on doors, and they start picking up the phone and pounding the phone, and they start writing articles, and they start making videos, and they start saying, let's sell some products. Woo-hoo! And you know what business owners do? They create a system, and from that system, they get other people to sell that product for them in exchange for money. So they give those people money. The other people sell the products. And then the system owner makes money without being involved in the process. In fact, he might hire programmers, and the programmers do the programming in exchange for money that he gives the programmers, employees. He might hire people that work on the office, the manual labor, right? He might hire, a painter to paint a painting in the building. He might hire somebody to orchestrate and hire everyone. And still, somehow, without being involved in that process, there's somebody in every business sitting at a top who's doing very little in that business and who's making a majority of the money. In fact, thousands of people are getting this system owner money from all over the world, and he may or may not be working at all. So how do you work 4 hours a day? Today, this is the only way, unfortunately. Now, I do think that that's unfortunate. I would actually prefer it that we lived in a society where everybody only had to work 4 hours a day and we could all do what we wanted all the time. Because, heck, you know what? If it's going to be between spending some time with my wife, having dinner with her, reading stories with her, talking to my family, my little brother Johnny who likes to play guitar, traveling on beaches, going on vacations, hanging out with people, and work, I ain't going to work if I don't have to, right? I'd rather have a system in place. Now, I'm not lazy. I work, in fact, harder than most people work a lot of the time because I'm excited about life and I've got energy because I eat well. I'm in the tropics, right? But if I don't have to do anything, I'm not going to do it, right? So I'm going to create a system. It's the smartest way to generate income. You don't even have to be smart to own a system, right? That's the best way to get money. Now, here's the unfortunate things about designing systems yourself. It takes money. So you have to have a bunch of people who give you money if you want to build your own system for people to give you money in exponential numbers. The only way. Now, I'm not saying cheat people. I'm not saying steal from people. All right? What I'm saying is there's a system that provides valuable products and services to people to the sense that they want to give you money in exchange for those products or services in large numbers. And in fact, they like doing it so much they want to keep doing it every month, every week, for the rest of your life, regardless of whether you work or not. Now that is a good system, right? So that's how money's made today. Now, unless you own it, unless you're the Federal Reserve, unless you're sitting there taxing everybody, that's what you got to do. You got to do that, or you got to go into a job and you got to trade your hours for dollars, which is just stupid if you know a better way, right? I'm not saying you're stupid. Again, I traded hours for dollars and I hated it. I'm sure you hate it if you're doing it. Most people hate it. I'm so glad I'm out of it, it's unbelievable, right? It's the stupidest thing in the world when you think about it. But the fact is that that's how our current system is built till we overthrow it. This is just the way that it has to be. So let's talk about these systems here for a second. Let's talk about some things that you can do. So you say, well, so wait. Where's this money coming from, Dave? Where's all this money coming from? It's coming from an exponentially expanding, growing group of people who are continuously giving you money every day for the rest of your life. So let's talk about how this works here. Let's talk about a traditional business system, or a traditional business as most people operate it. So we have Ma and Pa, all right, over here, and they have their little shovels, and they decide they want to sell more shovels, so they open a store, they do the books, they do the accounting, they do the phone work, they do the design, they do the marketing, and they're there from 5 in the morning till 10 p.m. at night to make $20,000 or $30,000 a year. Not a very good business because they don't have a system. Now let me tell you what the entrepreneurs that rule the world do. What they do is they come up with that same little shovel, and here's what they do. They make a little bit less money on the front end in favor of having a system that takes them out of the equation of selling that. They make a little bit less money. In fact, they work a little bit less hard because what they do is they outsource the rest of this work to more capable people than themselves. So as their business expands, they do less to incrementally make more money. Now, this way actually does make less money than the other way initially, but as this business expands and grows in size, what happens is they start developing systems and resources where they're so free from it that they can go build another business system. And so the smartest business system owners in the world build one system, they build another system, and they continuously build systems. As one fails or one becomes outdated, it's okay because they've got multiple backup systems, and they keep creating income streams for the rest of their life. This is the best place to be in the world of the entrepreneur, and you can do it in less than 4 hours a day if you learn how. So how do you get started? Well, in my opinion, the best way to get started in building business systems is the way where you don't have to build the original system. Why? Well, because if you have to build a system, you've got to have money, and chances are you don't. Why do I say that you probably don't? Because of the fact that 95% of the world doesn't have money, and they can't. So if you're among that 5%, you can start a business system, well, that's okay, right? But for the rest of us, for the people who are living in a green 1996 Dodge Caravan with the paint peeling off, you've got to create a business system, and in fact, if you don't do it, you can't get started. So how do you create a business system, or how do you become a part of a preceding existing system through this industry of home-based business or the network marketing industry? So let me explain to you how the network marketing industry works. We realize today that the government is evil and oppressive, and that they do things that are their own wills and desires that have no interest in helping people whatsoever, that's based in an ever-increasing, exponentially expanding supply of debt that they have to pay off. So politicians are motivated by taking more money from people from taxes. If you ever wondered why taxes goes up when there's Republicans and Democrats, it's because there's an exponentially expanding amount of debt that can't be paid off no matter what we do. That's exactly what's happening in America today. So they realize this and they keep increasing taxes and regulations. And guess what? Taxes and regulations don't hurt big companies. People think that they do, when in fact that they don't. They might, in the fact that they hurt big companies and their ability to grow faster, because obviously if you've got more profits, you can hire more employees, you can outsource faster, you can create systems faster than if you've got less profit. So it does hurt them in that sense. But guess who it really hurts? Poor people and the middle class. Why? You say, Dave, but they're not being taxed. This taxes is going to corporations, the people making tons of money, to people making $250,000 a year. How is it hurting the poor and the middle class? Here's how it's doing it, folks, is because as taxes, as regulations, as they exponentially expand, as the government continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, guess what tends to reduce in size? Profits. All right, my parents are here, so as they walk in, I might actually have to stop this video and restart it in just a minute. Let me actually shut this window here, keep this going. So I flew my parents down, we'll put them up in our house out here for a few days. So as taxes and regulations increase, profits decrease, guess what else decreases? The amount of systems that can be created. You say, why is this? Because systems become unavailable to those who don't have big money. Today, most people can't afford to create a business system. Why? Because they've got to go through permits. They've got to go through regulations. They've got to pay taxes that they don't even know about. They've got to have paperwork that they don't know how to fill out. They have to have employees that they can't afford. You can't open up the side of your business and start a business today. The government will come and they'll throw you in jail. In fact, I was at a guy's house the other day. He started a business, didn't pay his permits, didn't pay his taxes. The government came and they tore the building down, and he's lucky he's not in jail. So businesses become inaccessible to poor and middle class people, meaning the poor get poorer, the middle class gets poorer, and the rich own more of the business systems as time goes by in our current system, and there's no other way to do it unless we hit reset. Well, guess what that means to you? If you're like 95% of the world, you can't create a business system. And we're not going to criticize that. We're just going to realize that it is what it is, and we're going to show you how to participate in a business system that's created by somebody that's got the money to start it properly, and that's to this industry that we call network marketing. It's the greatest industry that's ever been created for our current system, and this is why, because it allows people that don't understand systems, that don't understand businesses, to participate in a kind of business system that they don't have to have the money to start. It's the coolest free enterprise type of industry that's ever existed in the world.